Welcome to the Outlap. How are we doing, boys?
Doing well. Happy to be here.
Doing
Trav?
great. Doing great,
Yeah, man.
Paternity leave. I'm chilling right now. Lot of time on the couch.
Love that, dude. Love that. Hope
Love to
Mama's
hear
doing
that.
well.
How's the newborn doing, and how's Mama doing? Yep.
Good. I got full projectile shit on yesterday at 2:30 in the morning, so we're right where we're supposed to be in terms of the newborn life.
Love that, man. Yeah, good for you. Good for you. Well, cool, guys. I guess we're another Grand Prix down, another weekend to the season, another Red Bull win, but not too bad of a race. I think overall, as to be expected for the season, but yeah, what do you guys think? Obviously, I messed up last week when we were talking. I said it was China. We went to Suzuka in Japan. But yeah, what do you guys think of the race?
I think first of all, Suzuka is just like amazing. It's a great play. The drivers love it, and that first section in particular is so hard to get right, and it's so fun to try to watch those guys do it for 50 whatever laps in a row. It's amazing, and that was kind of the start of the show for me. I think just watching cars go around those, especially the first two sectors at Suzuka, is amazing, man. So that was kind of the start of the race. The race. You know, Max is who we thought he was. It's not any surprise, but did enjoy watching the cars go very fast in circles this weekend.
I know we'll get into it a little bit later.
I figured for any viewers that didn't watch the race, we'll give you guys a quick little race recap. That way you can kind of keep everything in context, and then we'll dive into some of the nuances. But one thing I want to say on what you were saying, Trav, is in my opinion, is one of the most impressive camera shots of the year when they're going through the S's. It is, I think, one of the best places to see the lateral G-force in the car and how fast those guys actually turn. Every year it impresses me looking at the S's and watching those cars just absolutely carve. Very impressive. But into the race recap. So start number one, the top four held their order. Into turn 2 and 3 is where it got a little bit spicy, so a little bit farther back in the pack. Stroll went down the inside of Danny Rick. Danny Rick did not know that Albon was out on the outside of him, causing a collision. He took both of them out the race. Definitely a racing incident, but a little bit more on the onus of Danny Rick, I believe. That caused a red flag. Good thing is it led to start number 2, which was a standing start as well. Top four kind of stayed in order again. Charles was able to make a jump over Lewis, what ended up paying dividends down the line. From there, this was one of the best tire strategy races of the year so far. So Lando was the first to blink, going on to the hards. Throughout the race, there was a lot of really good overtakes. Yuki made a move around the outside in the S's, which is a really uncommon spot to make a move, especially with how large these cars are. Carlos also made a really, really great overtaking move on both of the Mercedes into Spoon, another spot on the track that you don't normally see overtakes. In terms of Yuki and V-Carb, had a really good mid-race pit stop to have him jump 3 or 4 positions, which I think ultimately led to him ending in the points. And then following that, he made another tasty move around the outside. Sainz fought his way up and made his way to the podium, knocking my guy Lando Norris off, but very good race, and one of the best displays of strategy by Ferrari I've personally ever seen. Finishing order was Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Leclerc, Norris, Alonso, Russell, Piastri, Hamilton, and Tsunoda rounding out the top 10. So yeah, wanted to just provide that context, and I'll pass the mic back over to you guys for a little bit and hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good race. I think, my text following it was just another relatively boring race, but like hard to hate anytime we're seeing, like we said, fast cars go in circles. I think, man, Ricciardo with the crash, right? I think step one is just, we were just talking about it, Willie loses seat, and then like everyone kind of sort of came out and was like, no, it's Danny, like we'll give him some time, we'll give him some real estate, and honestly, I just think that's another. It's like the injury that constantly plagues the guy in the MLB. Like he's good, but he's just can't seem to get it right and put it together for a long enough time to get like that road to recovery. And unfortunately, I think we're seeing the downfall of Danny Rick with Piastri. Obviously, being the new kind of Aussie in a seat that you can pay attention to, maybe maybe he'll pass the torch there. But man, that was just hate seeing it for Danny Rick.
There's a great American open wheel series that is known for taking in shitty old F1 drivers. It's time. I think I'm getting Indy season boners around here. It's starting off. Indy 500 practice is happening, and that's what I was thinking. Is like he's going to IndyCar next year. He's done. It's not. The start was really bad, and the move into one was very, very shaky at best. He wasn't just like not aware of the cars around him because of the start. He kind of got rattled. So I think so too, man. And in terms of like the Aussie thing, I think Piastri's kind of been out driving him for a while. It is sad to see. Everybody loves Danny, but I think it's about time. And we see every driver loses their edge at some point, and I think it's happened.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, on that note, in the RB team, Yuki getting in the points at his home race, firing up the Japanese fans for them to quietly golf clap and cheer. But yeah, hey, Tsunoda looked pretty solid out there. I think we've heard in previous pods I'm a Yuki hater, but man, the guy just seems to be driving with a lot more poise. Is he still a hothead when asked to have his worst driver teammate pass him? Maybe. But looked pretty good out there.
Again.
Can we do a thought exercise real quick? Nick, you start with you. Can we do our top 5 drivers of the year? Because I think Yuki's in my spoiler alert.
So I don't know if I quite have him in the top 5. Let me work this out in my mind. I think it's hard to throw anybody but Max in number 1. Yes, he's in the best car, but if it doesn't break, he wins. So Max has got to be number 1. I think I'd probably throw Sainz in the slot. I think Sainz has been really impressive this year. Number 3, I'm a fan, so I got to throw Lando in there. I think Charles has been a little bit under expectations, so I don't think Charles is actually in my top 5 right now. I think I'll say it. Perez has driven well enough I'll throw him in there, number 4. He's driven better than I expected. And then I think Piastri is number 5 there. I know there's a little bit of McLaren bias, but the fact that it's his second year, he's competing with Lando, and he was able to beat him and snag a good amount of points in what was it, Australia that he beat him? I can't remember which one, but I think that'd be my top 5. The more I think about it, though, Trav, I think it's a fair call-out that Yuki is in that conversation. And then especially when you look at – and then I'd love to say Fernando, but he hasn't quite had the car to really get up the order and hasn't had any amazing drives. So that'd be my top 5. That is as off the cuff as it gets.
Yeah. I think, Yuki's – Yuki is driving. He's eliminated – it feels like he's raised his level this year. He's eliminated a lot of, the really big dumb mistakes that he used to make, and they may have a decent car. I don't know if he's just driving the shit out of it, but they look better than they did last year, and the tires are standing up. They're definitely it's a good car, and it's fun to watch him drive it.
No, yeah, I think Nick probably I align pretty closely with that top 5. I do think Yuki, given the car, given the team, given who he's competing against, I do think he's driving well. I just don't want to give the man too many compliments. So yeah, we'll keep it moving. So Williams, guys. Okay, Logan Sargent making it through a race with a car. Congrats. But are they going to be able to finish the season?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's a question.
Legitimately,
personally, I don't think that's a question at all.
Are we going to see Albon on there on a 3-wheeler, dude, just pedaling his little heart out? What's going to happen?
That every team has a amount of their budget that they allot at the beginning of the season for wrecks. There is a strong likelihood that through 3 rounds are we in 4 rounds? Can't remember. Doesn't matter. It's all a blur. There's talks that they might already be over their allotted budget in terms of what they had, which ultimately does not mean that they won't complete the season. What it means is that any future developments that they had to try and bring that car up the grid is going to have to be sacrificed because that all comes out of the same budget pool. The biggest worry right now is if that chassis is damaged to actually have 2 cars in China. So, and you feel bad for Alex, but at the same time, I don't think as a Formula One driver you should have to worry about the car to be able to supply a team, or just a team to supply a car to put underneath you to drive on track, right? That is, in my mind, kind of like walking in the door, right? If you're a Formula One team, you should be able to build a car and put it on track. So the fact that they've already ran a weekend with 1 car is already embarrassment. And the fact that they might show up to another race, like a fresh race with 1 car, I said it in the last pod, but it's just like, get Williams out of there, even though they're a freaking very historic, very successful team. It's sad to see the embarrassment that they are right now. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
They're
I don't
fine.
care.
This is a reflection of years of financial toil for them, but there's a cost cap and they have some PE investment. So I think it's a short-lived thing. I love the weirdness that is F1, and I think it's cool that this happens in this sport. I think it's unique. We're losing a lot of that in sport as a whole, and even the Premier League is being buttoned up. I think sometimes you need to forget your jerseys at home and have to play in your practice kits, right? It's kind of fun to see this happen, and I don't think it's an embarrassment. I think it's just a whimsical, oh, there goes that sweetheart Williams again,
Yeah, no, for sure. Can I a couple just I guess fun facts around crashes and how much they cost. So 2023
also known as
driver
the
damage
Destructors
totals.
Championship.
If you want to know, yes, the Destructors. Who do you think led last year, and what do you think was his?
Well, I know who led
cost
in 2021, which would have been Mick Schumacher by a country mile. Last year, it's got to be Logan. It's got to be Logan or Zoe going into the wall. That had to be an expensive one, but I feel like Logan more often put his shit in the wall.
Yeah, you got it right, Nick. Logan Sargent at $4.3 million in driver damage totals.
That's not that much, actually. I was thinking, it's a $14 million car. I was thinking at least 20, 30, right?
I thought at least you'd get cost of car a couple times, total loss. But there must be enough stuff you could salvage off these guys, the one-off pieces and stuff. Surprisingly, coming in number 2 there is Carlos Sainz, $3.6 million.
What's funny about Carlos
Sergio Perez.
is you think about Carlos,
some big names on that list.
A good amount of those last year were not him, right? He got in a couple wrecks, but it wasn't really him putting it in the wall. I feel like a lot of his cost was probably components breaking, because Ferrari definitely had their struggles last year with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then at the bottom of the table, we got Max Verstappen at $345,000, and then the next closest, George Russell, at $670,000. So those are just crazy numbers. I think for a dude that's that solid to also I guess have his car just do all the things and not get tangled up. But I guess when you're constantly at the front of the pack,
that's why I was so excited last week when his car broke down, because it had been over 2 years since we've seen the man retire from a race. Mind-blowing. Impressive, tip your hat, but also it was nice to see a switch up. We talked about Williams. I know I mentioned it in the race recap. The third piece that I wanted to touch on was that Ferrari masterclass of strategy. I was wildly impressed. When you see Ferrari going out on their own, doing their own thing, kind of in the same vein that you were just talking about. Oh, good old Williams. Oh, good old Ferrari. That's kind of the way I looked at it when Charles extended his first stint. He went longer on the hards than any other driver. And I think he started P9 and ended up way up the grid in P4. So really good race, as well as Sainz, making his way onto the podium. Obviously, the car had some pace this weekend, and they actually set it up kind of what I feels like the opposite of what Ferrari normally does. Last year, they got a ton of pole positions, but 8 tires, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This time, it feels like with Sainz and Leclerc both not really qualifying very well, feels like they might have a little bit of a change in philosophy there. Don't know exactly what was going on, but the car was set up for the race, and it paid dividends. Wanted to hear your guys' thoughts.
So guys, what do you guys think? So again, we got Sainz getting on a podium. I know he's still a few points back in the driver championship right now behind Leclerc, but he had to sit out a race, right? Is there a world where he retains his seat, or is he gone? Like contract-wise,
Alonso resigned with Aston today.
And then
forgot about that.
I just he was one of the more. Yeah, no, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. But yeah, no, I think I was so interested in kind of the prodigal son of the leaving, right, and Nick still being in the seat. I love the I don't know how that will shake out, how you listen to team orders, ultimately what you're doing, right? And so it's interesting seeing Sainz continue to crush it, and I hope Ferrari cries a little bit when he leaves, just because. One of the things I hate about F1 is that I can't dream about driving a Ferrari anytime soon. But when Mercedes was at the top of the table, I was like, I could go get a used Mercedes and whip this around and feel like part of the team. But Ferrari, them keep pushing it up there. Not the thing that's going to happen.
You can go get a Renault for $12,000 on Craigslist.
Oh, that's just a shell company. They don't actually make
import
cars.
An Alpine. That's what I'm going to do.
No, I think Nick. Yeah, it's their weird racing brand. We should do a mini deep dive on Renault and their history in F1 because it's about to expire. I think Andretti's gonna probably buy them out. This is just a long shot bet. No, sorry for the tangent, but Nick, to your point, Ferrari's car. I think they worked really hard on tire deg over the holiday break, and it looks to handle. I think a big part of them improving their strategy this year has a lot to do with the flexibility
Mike, while
of
you
the
were
car
chatting,
and the tires too.
the interesting thought came to my mind, a little nugget that I picked up during the race. How about Lewis Hamilton going on team radio asking, "Shall I let George by?" I think 2016 Nico Rosberg was rolling in his grave. Just obviously Nico Rosberg is still alive. That was a joke, but it's just if the dude's not competing for a championship, he's willing to play that game. But 2021 Lewis would have never. 2014 to 2021 Lewis would have never. That message when it came on the board on the screen shocked me. I was like, "Are we sure this is Lewis that said this?" I was pretty surprised. They were slightly. But you just don't normally hear the lead driver coming on the radio saying, "Hey, shall I let him by?" It just is not a common occurrence, and especially for a guy like Lewis, that's as fiery as Lewis and wants to win. He'll comply with team orders when it needs to happen, and they're on different strategies. But I don't think he's ever in his career suggested it himself.
Yeah, for sure. So, boys, what do we think? What was favorite pass or favorite overtake kind of on that race there? I think there was a couple of really good ones. Love the Yuki thing for the home crowd, but I want to get your guys' take. What do you think was the best overtake on that race in Japan?
S's. Stroll actually made a few good moves as well, which I didn't call out in the race recap, but I think that the tire difference was far larger on the moves that Carlos Sainz made on the the Mercedes. So that's just a little bit less impressive in my mind. And having driven that track a lot virtually, I think the S's are a harder point to make, and in a riskier place to make that overtake as well. So I think it goes to Yuki around the outside in the S's twice.
I think the signs on 130R. I mean, not signs. Perez on 130R was
okay.
amazing.
So my only
kind of
reservation there, right? There's that classic really clip of Alonso going around the outside of Michael Schumacher, and his quote was, "I knew he was going to break because he has a wife and kids to go home to."
So good.
The reason why it's a G comment for sure, like prime Fernando Alonso.
Savage.
The difference is the cars back then
Savage.
were not able to take that corner easy flat, and the cars today, virtual and in real life, it is a baby curve. So that's why, in my mind, it's a little bit less of an impressive overtake, because they're both full throttle. They keep it full throttle through the corner. Yes, he made him back out, but that, in my mind, and just having driven that track with these modern cars, it's flat out, and there's just a lot more throttle control and nuance in the S's than there is in 130R, at least anymore. I think it used to be a much harder corner, but with how fast these cars are anymore, pretty much since the turbo hybrid era, that corner's been flat. It was a good move. I don't want to discount that it wasn't a good move, but that was just why I had Yuki's.
Yeah, no, it was a good overtaking. Again, I'm loving to see like some of the changes allowing for better racing with some of the stuff. Overall, I think over the last 2 years, some of the rules and reg changes have helped kind of increase those overtakes, especially, high speed overtakes where we're not, stuck in DRS trains, and still stuck in them. Don't get me wrong, but it's getting better. So I like that for sure. So Big Trav, I know you gave Nick the old hush for Alonso, but give it to me. What's going on with Fernando Alonso? Because I know his comments were pretty spicy when talking about looking at the Mercedes seat and saying, why would I change teams when they're behind us? But what are we hearing out of the Alonso camp?
I saw that he re-signed, I think, till 2026, so he's got 2 more years there. He will not be in the Mercedes seat next year, which is, things are pointing more and more to Kimi Antonelli. I think that's probably going to happen if somebody doesn't come out of nowhere to fill that seat. But I like it. I think it's a money thing. Like, he's not dealing with Lance Stroll for nothing. I think he's kind of betting on their continued improvement.
I think that
he's obviously
on
getting
the
a bag.
Kimi Antonelli Mercedes note, I think that Toto is still kicking himself for not being able to give Max the chance, because the Mercedes was in the running to have a chance to get Max, and Red Bull was able to provide the seat. So I think that that's haunting him, and I think that he's much more eager to take a chance on a young, very talented driver like Kimi now than he was previously, because he's watched how it played out, and I think it still haunts him to this day. You know what I mean? Max, like, he's still trying to maybe get Max in that seat. Obviously a long shot, but I think that's looking more and more likely. This is obviously another domino to fall in the driver market. I hope the next domino to fall is Lance Stroll retiring to tennis.
Yeah, no, that guy, daddy ball, just get him on a different court, different type of surface, get him from behind a wheel. But in the Red Bull camp, obviously early season, we had a ton of just like crazy news, like team's going to fall apart, like Red Bull is going to be the red, cow, like whatever it was, right? Things were falling apart. Seem to all settle down or not? What do we, like, you guys hearing anything else coming out of the Red Bull camp right now?
I think the big thing is Adrian Newey. Adrian Newey has been linked to Ferrari in the past week, and they're not denying it. Aston Martin it brought up that they were talking to Aston Martin as well, and they did deny it. So I think that he is in talks with Ferrari. Now, I don't really know. Obviously, that's when that seems like it's a little bit of trouble in the Red Bull camp. But in F1, typically when somebody like that switches teams, they may not be active for another year or two, because what they call gardening leave, where like they basically, it's like a little bit of like, your contract's not up until then, like, get the fuck out. So TBD in terms of when he actually joins them, but yeah, sounds like he's potentially going or looking that way.
Yeah, no, the guy's a wizard, and the idea that this sport moves so fast that you could potentially sideline him for a season and he comes back and wouldn't be able to like really move the needle is a crazy thought. Like, I still think
you got to realize, Mike,
plenty of Red Bull secrets to give away, but I know that's just the way things are around here. But
he made that shit. So I promise you, he will retain it all, and anything they develop after him, he's going to have a high degree of confidence that he's going to be able to have some better thoughts on it. in terms of like the turmoil in Red Bull and all that stuff, right? There's not smoke without fire. There's too much that came out, too many investigations to have had happened. There's clearly still a power struggle happening within that team. And I think that on the Adrian Newey note, he's seeing that happen. He's like, I'm over this. And he probably also wants an element of a challenge as well, right? I remember at one point you went through it in your career, Mike, where you're just like, I don't feel challenged. I want to kind of move on to that next thing. And so he's old enough that he's done it all. He's won a ton of championships. He's looking at that Ferrari like, it's a pretty good car. I kind of want to go have a challenge. So I think those are the two elements in my mind that I wanted to comment on was like Newey. I could see that move being realistic because he's an older gentleman. He's done it all. Why not? Right? He's watching all of the pissing contest that is happening at the top of Red Bull. He might as well just say, "Hey, we had a good run. I'm not about this bureaucratic BS, and I'm ready to move on." Only other thing on the You're right. Like the only other thing I wanted to comment on in terms of Red Bull was like I think we will see it conclude towards the end of the season, but it is going to be either Max and Marco leaving, or probably just Christian Horner leaving. And I think that is the more likely outcome because not only does Marco run their entire junior program, but there's not a driver that you think you can confidently replace Max with. You're not going to just let him walk because of the team principle. The driver's got more impact than a team principle because ultimately they're the one driving the car.
Yeah,
It's kind of the way they laid it out, man.
No, bold prediction to think that like it's like a and or scenario there. I know that, but I have a feel like, listen, Christian Horner, he's kind of been with the team from inception, got them to where they're at today, I think, with a lot of what he was able to kind of steward at that team. Max is there doing Max things great. Honestly, I wonder if it just kind of slowly gets out of the headlines, gets blown over. We lose a few folks, and I'm sure you'll see a little bit of attrition, but I have a hard time believing that you're going to get like a Red Bull team without Horner or without Max or without Marco. I think those guys are all sticking around, but that's just my own take there. But we'll see. Lot of stuff to happen between now and then, and a lot of silly season left. But Travis, our resident NASCAR country man, I know we wanted to talk about NASCAR and some things going on in that world.
Yeah, we can just add this to kind of like the weird monitoring section of the podcast. Like, maybe we don't need to take action on this, but just something to know. I'm a big NASCAR guy. I love all of the racing series. NASCAR switched over to their newest generation of cars this year, which essentially for them just kind of means they update their regs and their packages.
Okay.
This is this year, yeah. The new car is released this year, yeah. And so there are 4 types of NASCAR races, essentially. There are super speedways, so like 2.5 mile tracks. There's anything up to a mile, so like it's typically like a mile. It's 1.5 miles to 2.5 miles, something in there. Most of them are 1.5 mile ovals. There are the road courses, so the more traditional F1 like circuits that they're at COTA a couple weekends ago. And then there's the short track. So they have special aero packages for all of these. So far, everything other than the super speedway package has been really difficult to overtake. This has never really been a problem for NASCAR either. Like they're traditionally short tracks have been especially bad, and that's what I wanted to talk about mostly. Is they're traditionally like the short track racing is kind of NASCAR's bread and butter. It's the getting into the bump and runs. Moving tracks up the car with your car and everything like that, or moving cars up the track with your car. It's been really hard to get close this year, and it's been like Martinsville is last weekend. It's one of my favorite races of the year. It's kind of the OG moonshiner bump and run NASCAR track. It's great. After the race, looked at the timing sheets, and the cars based on their timing sheets, cautions and stuff like that. they would have all finished within like a half of a lap of each other. So obviously that's not how it shook out because of strategy and things like that. But if they had just run the race in circles, going the same speed, they're going the exact same speed. And it's a really big problem. NASCAR is a little worried about it. Bristol was the same way. It was really tough to drive at Bristol. So just something to monitor. The NASCAR season, super speedway. There's only been one super speedway race. But the rest of NASCAR has been really, really tough this year in terms of an entertainment product. So just something to monitor.
Yeah, man, that's interesting stuff. I know, like, the whole world of racing has kind of been shook up ever since the Drive to Survive series happened. And, like, we've seen the explosion of kind of F1, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how you go from kind of the 80s and 90s viewership of NASCAR and make it more appealing to like the modern day race viewer. So it'll be interesting to see what the evolution is. I think they're trying, right? They're doing stuff that makes it less like generic stock car racing that I think we all grew up on, but it'll be, I'll be watching. I think I'd love to say that NASCAR is something that interests me, but it really just doesn't grab my attention, even as a motorsports fan. But that being said, speaking of what has grabbed attention is F1, right? And I think we've all been a part of like the blow up of F1, but I have some stats of just what has happened since 2017 to now. Or I guess 2023 is where the stats end of like what's just happened to this. So I'm going to read a few things. So Liberty Media, Colorado company, shout out, acquired F1. Their annual revenue, so Formula One's annual revenue in 2017 was $1.8 billion. Last year in 2023, it was $3.2 billion. So we're looking at a 78% increase since 2017. Average F1 US per race viewership went from 538,000 in 2017 to 1.1 million now. So we're looking at a 106% increase in viewership. And then as an enterprise value of what this like means to a business like Liberty Media. So in 2017, it was an $8 billion business is what F1 was when it was acquired. And now it is doubled in value. So it is a $16 billion enterprise value operation. And Liberty Media, talking about the expansion of sports, just acquired MotoGP. So I think they're trying to replicate what they've done here with F1 and now bring it to us on two wheels. What do you guys think about that? I personally have been wanting to get into MotoGP.
So you bring that up.
Looks
I
cool.
think that
Dudes getting high-sided on bikes and flipping into gravel traps is like a bit scarier than
if you boil it
F1,
down,
but
like way over boil it down. It's if you marry Formula One racing and NASCAR racing, because you have those crazy wrecks, but you also have those crazy racing on really cool tracks. The difference is obviously they're on two wheels. I've gotten moderately into MotoGP. I followed the championship the last few years, and normally what I do is I catch the YouTube race highlights post race. So normally the day afterwards, and you know, it is exciting to watch, and the racing's good. And, you know, it is a similar product to Formula One. So in my mind, this should do nothing but, you know, make it better and hopefully just grow who's involved. You know, it's already got all the biggest brands in motorcycles, but grow the eyes on it, do cool things. You know, imagine a weekend where you have Formula One and MotoGP. Obviously, that would be almost impossible to logistically plan, but how cool would that be to watch? Where you finish, like, instead of F1, F2, let's do F1 and MotoGP on the same track in the same weekend. That could be a ball. So I just think it opens up a lot of possibilities of what can be done. It's already a good product in terms of the racing that it provides, but the eyes on it are less, but it's a lot of really good tracks and stuff that we're used to from Formula One as well. So, you know, I think a lot of viewers will transfer over from that. A lot of really good racing, and then, you know, hopefully it's just gonna increase what they can do with it, right?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see a Netflix Hell on Wheels or Surviving to Drive.
Hell on Wheels that's a good one. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Was that off the dome?
I'm out here riffing.
God, dude, that's solid. No, I think, Nick, I'm sure like that getting F1 and MotoGP on the same weekend is potentially the entire reason they bought that. Like, I think that would elevate MotoGP's product a ton. It's funny you bring up NASCAR with MotoGP. I feel like they're very similar racing. I know that's weird to say because it's bikes and cars, but like it's kind of like the dipsy-do racing where like you can cross on, you can like, all over the place. You're kind of bumping each other a little bit. So I think that's a pretty neat comp. Also, they have similar problems right now where
it looks like a barge board
from
like a 2016 Formula 1 car. Like you guys remember those crazy looking things in front of the edge of the side pod? That's the way the front of those bikes look now. I know exactly what you're talking about. On that note, super side tangent, Ducati has a launch thing that they do that drops the front of the bike. So they actually launch with negative rake in the bike to get a better launch, and then they press a button to then lift the bike back up. So it's like, there is that level of technological development and competition as well, which I think tracks a lot more to Formula One than it does NASCAR. But then you have the what Trav was saying, those crazy overtakes where guys are going for wild moves. And then you add the element of you pretty much don't go through a MotoGP race without a wreck of some kind, some guy rolling in the gravel, which I think that it's more impressive to watch those guys crash and get up than it is to watch a Formula One car. Especially if you've ever seen them, like you were talking about, getting high-sided where they're getting speed wobbles and they end up on the wrong side and get thrown off the bike like a catapult.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
I'm just probably excited that once MotoGP gets a few more American eyes, we're probably looking at like a, Harley Davidson Sons of Anarchy team. It's not going to happen. Americans are too unrefined to have sweet motorcycle companies. We'll just leave it to everyone else outside of the country. But okay, so MotoGP, exciting. You know what was also exciting last year was the Las Vegas Grand Prix. About America just doing things right. So I want to, again...
Cold tires forever,
dude. I want to get you a couple of Las Vegas Grand Prix stats coming out of the same source that I got some of that Liberty Media stuff. I thought this was so interesting just because...
Yeah, they can piss off with
everyone
that, Mike.
Everyone poo-pooed the race, right? Not another race in America. All the Euro fans were hating the time that it was at, et cetera, et cetera. Like, won't be built fast enough. Oh... Dude, I know. But I just got you some stats here. So there was a 40-page report released breaking down the economic impact to Las Vegas. So the total economic impact measured at $1.5 billion, including visitors spending $884 million for that weekend, which is just
Super
bananas.
Bowl there. Yeah.
The race generated $77 million in tax revenue, more than any other event in Las Vegas history. So, think about all the things that have happened. And, the Super Bowl happened there. Yeah. This is going to show up every single year. Absolutely crazy. Race visitors, and we knew this because Formula One's expensive, so it attracts people who have expensive tastes. But race visitors spent 3.6x more than the typical Las Vegas traveler, staying 4.1 nights and spending over $4,100 on average. I know obviously some of this stuff was inflated, but they started to drop the prices a little bit on things. But people were out here, drinking $40 shoeies at the bar and going crazy. Local workers earned $52 million in wages. The event created 7,300 jobs, 22 for race-related construction and 5,100 for event operation. The Las Vegas airport was the second busiest airport in the country the day of the race, the day and after the race, with 2,200 operation flights. And then Clark County says it was the largest sporting event with global audience in Las Vegas history. Safe to say, that Formula One will be back for the foreseeable future. So like we know that
all of
it was just crazy.
The residents
like, those are some bananas numbers. Like those numbers,
and
just
thankfully
that race alone,
the running of the race will do nothing but get
into
better.
The S&P 500 kind of thing.
I thought it was really interesting last year when that race was happening to watch the perception of everything change, because everyone was real negative about it. You heard a lot of bad press coming out around the track not being ready. And then we have FP1 and FP2 canceled. Bless you, Trav, even though you were muted. I got you. And so you've got all that, and then you have the race, and it's a fantastic race. And that, changed people's perception on, oh, this was actually a good race. And then you add one hell of a cherry on top that is, it not only was a successful race in terms of it just being a fantastic race to watch, but it was actually very beneficial for the community and for the town. I think the piece that's missing in that is how much money was lost with, the disruptions in transportation leading up to it. It's nowhere near that, though, right? Like, there's no way it's going to ever compare to the amount of money they were able to create. So it just, in my mind, makes the case for just cooler and cooler races to happen in the future. If Las Vegas is able to pull it off, like, why not New York City? Why not,
Why not Colorado Springs F1 Pike Peak Hill Climb? Let's run them up to 14,000. Send them off the edge. Let's do it. Let's F1 to Colorado Springs Pike Peak Hill Climb.
If they put a square track in downtown Manhattan,
Baku's a hell of a track for a street track. There's a few 90s. There's quite a few 90s.
It's going to be like you're just going up, doing a 90-degree right. Yeah, it's going to be like Baku over and over again.
Yeah, brutal.
It is. It is cool.
Miami.
All right, guys. So we got China. We kind of blew our load there last time talking about that and track day. After that, we got Miami, which I think is one of the uglier tracks.
What do you mean stay up?
But
hold up.
I love it.
Up.
I love
let's
it's in
be
America.
honest with
I love that it's at an appropriate time that doesn't make me have to stay up or wake up. But excited to see China.
Hell yeah. Love that for you.
Yeah, dude.
Love that.
I'm not up at 11.
I watched it live.
For race times, I'm okay with it being late night, but then if it's like early morning, that's where I personally struggle on more night owls. So like 11 p.m. start.
First week of a new baby, yeah.
Love that, dude.
Sorry, just had to give you some shit.
Amen. All right, boys. No. Listen, out me on the pod. I get it, bro. I get it. Well, gentlemen, I think this has been a good one. About here to wrap it. Fun fact, if you want to distract yourself, Travis, during your paternity leave, McLaren and Mercedes AMG Petronas both have job listings up on LinkedIn, so check those out. You can maybe daydream about moving to Europe. Yeah, I think what needs to happen, honestly, is the same way that the NFL has a combine. There needs to be a pit crew combine, so your boy can get a shot. Like, I'll be out here shrugging tires. Like, Jack fails, I got you. I'll just lift it off the ground. Like, come on, let's see this happen. But yeah, Trav on the paternity leave, take a look, daydream.
I will. I've always had dreams in sales, right? I've always had dreams of like selling. Like Nike sponsorships or something like that. Just something dope where like you get to fly across the country and hang out at events like that. So
thanks again for tuning in for another episode of the Outlap. Happy to get up to speed.
I blew it. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.